Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I don't have anything planned and we're just gonna roll with it because why not? So, as I've started to get more ideas of what to make, what to film, and not necessarily focus so much on the product, but rather me and the product. Like, if you guys are coming here to watch a video, you're probably also watching me, because there's a ton of other videos describe, like, for example, there's a ton of videos out there talking about like the iPhone 3GS, right? But if you're watching my video, chances are you're probably also coming to the channel for me, for the stuff I comment on, the stuff I film. It's probably taken me too long to realize that, to really realize that, it's not just what you film, but it's also the person holding the camera. Rambling aside, look at that lovely wood grain in the background, right? If you haven't already noticed, we're not in the typical office area, or like the actual office room. This is more of just an area that I have made with things lying around. If you couldn't already tell by the nature of everything here, but this is an area that, all this stuff wasn't being used before. Let me just say that directly, except for maybe that hard drive and the airport. Couldn't think of the name for a second. I've made this entire setup here to be a dedicated iTunes library. I took a quick look on YouTube to see if anyone's done something similar, and sure, people have like, making a when I say iTunes library, I mean it's just like a computer hooked up to a drive, or computer with internal drive for music, movies, things like that. And while people have made like custom servers or like headless machines and stuff like that, I haven't really seen anything of what I have here, so I figured I might as well share it to you guys. You guys might find it interesting. I certainly do, because I use this quite a lot. And even though it looks like just a bundle of wires and random nonsense, it's actually pretty fun. So like I said, this is not the dedicated area where I actually film most things. This is a different part where I've just assembled everything you see here. By the way, we got an entire mini system here, mainly just for speakers, but that wasn't being used otherwise, so it's a good use for that. It's a good use for this MacBook, which hasn't been used in a very long time, but I actually love this thing now. This is awesome. Combined it with an external hard drive. This was actually the main part of the system, like before the system existed. So that hard drive, if you've been watching the channel for a while and you know about the iMac G3, which doesn't work anymore, that hard drive was combined with that iMac for a very long time. First, I used it as a boot drive, and then secondly, I used it as the beginning of an iTunes library. And ever since then, ever since the iMac failed, I kept using that hard drive with the PowerBook. And I probably would have stayed with the PowerBook, to be honest, but the only reason I switched over to this is because this can actually stay in a dedicated setup. The display on this thing, the backlight, doesn't work, so it's actually good to use it like that, because that's why it hasn't been used in a very long time. Thankfully, the PowerBook still works, and because of that, it allows me to do other things with it. Admittedly, I haven't done anything with it lately, but you get the point, right? This thing, instead of sitting around, it can actually be used as a desktop, so to say, because, well, I mean, if you saw this, it's a desktop, right? It has a lot of ports. It can communicate with FireWire, which is the superior standard. So that thing is being hooked up to FireWire 400, running macOS, obviously. And I've got like that switcher there for the audio. I probably started this a little too complicated, but I'm just going to roll with it. Like I said, a mini system here for the speakers primarily. The black MacBook, or the Black Book, as the server, so to say, the iTunes library main machine. The hard drive, which I already explained. That switcher over there, the only function of that is I don't currently have it completely set up because I'm always changing things. And of course we have low battery on this because I didn't really plan it. So I'm gonna have to plug this in whenever we move over here. But basically this switcher is mainly just to hook it up to the system here, but it's also so I can plug this MacBook into the same speakers. Alright, now that the iPhone is actually being plugged in here so I can charge, we can continue. So this is the view of the setup here while you're actually, using it. And like I was saying earlier, the switcher here, the primary function for it, as we also have some noisy hard drive sounds, the switcher is to give me an extra input for the mini system. I'm sure I can make a, not as complicated setup, but it's what I have on hand. And I had a different switcher actually, but I needed to use that one for something else, so I put this one here. Yeah, I know, the PS2 theme isn't exactly the greatest for this, but whatever. So, the switcher allows me to simultaneously plug the black MacBook and this MacBook, 2012 Retina MacBook, into the mini system. This MacBook here is actually on Mountain Lion, obviously the latest it supports. It is a very snappy machine on Mountain Lion, but I don't actually use it primarily on Mountain Lion. I have this dual booted with Catalina, and that's what I use YouTube for. It's just primarily for discovering new music. This, because it also has a super drive, I think it does have a super drive, it's great for importing CDs, and like I said, it has all the ports that I need to plug everything in here. So it's basically like a self-contained desktop. I would be using it as a laptop if the backlight worked, but it's the next best thing. And I do have this cooling fan. It seems to be doing the job. It has that typical mid-2000s blue LED glow to it, but so do the speakers actually on that thing. It's honestly not bad. I mean, it kind of fits the 2000s vibe here anyways. We got the wood grain, lovely wood grain. That's it for the computers, the hard drive, the switcher, as I already said multiple times, the mini system. And by the way, the mini system on this thing, the CDs do work, the tape deck does not. And it's not because of belts. This thing's too new. It does have good belts. It's something electromechanical, I think, because it has like solenoids and fancy, it's I'm not going to deal with it because I don't need it here. I have other cassette decks, so it's not a priority. The other thing that we have here is this thing that is elevated. So this, as I said earlier, is an Airport Extreme base station. I think this is actually a 5th generation model, but I'll have to check the model number on that. So I got to this point in the video and I realized I never actually checked the model number, at least when I was initially recording, so I decided to do that now. And when I took a look at the bottom here, much to my surprise, this is actually a 1st generation Airport Extreme, model number A1143, with a copyright date of 2006. Now I looked at Mac Tracker. The 1st and the 2nd generation share the same model number, but considering this has a 2006 copyright date, it leads me to believe that it's a 1st generation Extreme, which I honestly did not realize I even had. I was pretty sure that most of mine were either 4th or 5th generation models, but surprisingly, I have a 1st gen. So yeah, that's cool to know. The only reason why it's on this shelf here is because otherwise I wouldn't really have any good spot to put it. I could, in theory, put it here, but it takes up a lot of space, and this thing does get actually quite toasty when it's on, but it's not on all the time, so don't worry. I know it's on cardboard, but this thing is only plugged in whenever everything else is powered on. Speaking of which, like I said, when it's plugged in, everything's plugged into a power strip there, and I completely turn off that power strip when I'm not using this, because I have no need to keep this running. It's not like a file server where I would always want to have the files on hand or something like that. Like I said, it's just an iTunes server. I'm never done with modifying this setup, and in general, just any setup that I have. I always feel like I want to do something better, but in theory it never happens, so this is like the best I can do until I figure out some other idea. Sure, it doesn't look perfect now, but it's the current setup right now. It works. Now, I don't want to say that this is like the worst setup ever. It's not the greatest. I will say, like, it's clearly not the best. But this is literally just stuff I have on hand. Like, this is a makeshift desk. This is not an actual desk. If we zoom out here, that's just like a piece of plywood. This is or they're all like particle board, you know, veneer covered type stuff that I just have. And this is one of those, you know, plastic drawer things. These are all actually the same thing. 3 different plastic drawers, and they store various different components. I'm not using this like a desk with the drawers. It's more like a desk, and these are just like extra storage things. So don't think of it as a traditional desk in that way. In this one, we just have like a whole bunch of power cables and stuff like that. This one has like PC stuff with VGA cables and, you know, other things like that. I do have some dedicated storage areas too for other things. So I have actually thinned out everything in these drawers. But it still does get the job done. You know, I primarily just wanted it for a stable surface. Because this one was shorter, I actually had to put some extra pieces here to make it the same height. The fact that these can move, it really hasn't been a problem for me. As long as you don't, like, shake the entire setup. Yeah, the monitor shakes too. As long as you don't, like, really move this setup, it just works. So I don't have much else to say on this. Like I said, I really wasn't expecting to do something like this. But I figured, you know, I'm always doing something like this in the background of all the videos that I have. I figured I might as well start now and show you guys some cool stuff. I guess if we take a look at this too, the actual monitor and the keyboard here. Anyone recognize this keyboard? This is actually from the dedicated... I think I also restored some mice with the video. It's been forever ago. But this is that one Dell multimedia keyboard that I restored, and I've been using it here. In the past, I used it with another machine. I've been using it with this desktop, but ever since I got the black MacBook out again, I haven't been using that really. And this works amazing. Like, it's a normal keyboard, sure, there's a whole bunch of wear and tear on it, whatever, it works. Honestly, it works great for this setup. And it actually matches the monitor. This is another Dell monitor. I actually did film a video where I cleaned it up initially. I haven't like edited or obviously uploaded it to YouTube, but it does exist somewhere in the files of the Mac Mini. The monitor shaking, I have no idea why it's like that. But it also doesn't bother me because if I'm not, you know, shaking the setup, it's not moving. The monitor itself, for anyone interested, if I can find... It's one of these fancy ones where it's got like more options. I'm not used to this setup or this menu here. I actually don't know if it's going to tell me the model number. Okay, enough about the monitor. I'll just edit it on screen, whatever the model number is, if anyone's interested. It's like a WPF or something, 19-inch display, whatever. We're here to talk about the actual... setup, the iTunes library. So I don't need to open about this Mac because it's already open. macOS Lion. Now I've heard some, let's say, not super nice things about Lion in the past. I think Lion is an amazing operating system. Now don't get me wrong, I haven't like daily driven this, but I have used the internet on this. I have used it with devices such as an iPhone 4, devices such as an iPhone 5, iPhone 5S, you know, everything up to iOS 9. Think of that type of device. It works amazing. You know, considering this is all on a laptop too, Lion feels fast. This is a mechanical hard drive. If I go into more info, there it is. MacBook 13-inch, 2008, early 2008, with a 2.4 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo, 2 gigabytes of RAM. I would max it out, but I don't have more DDR2 sticks. I do have spare DDR3 from the Mac Mini, but I don't have any for this. Intel GMA X3100, 144 megabyte graphics. I honestly haven't even looked at this until now. But I gotta say, Lion is actually a really cool system. It works great on these older MacBooks, and I imagine, oh, there it is. Dell 1908 WFP display. What do you know? 1440 by 900. I honestly didn't think the graphics chipset, or at least like the RAM amount, was that low, but apparently it is. But it doesn't affect me because I can't get enough of Lion. I have used Mountain Lion, like I said, it's on the 2012 MacBook Pro, and I used it a long time ago on the 2012 Mac Mini, but that is, you know, apart from Tiger, Leopard, I used Mountain Lion, and I never really used Snow Leopard or, you know, Lion. I never really used those in-between versions. This MacBook actually came on Snow Leopard, and I do have the installer DVD for it, like a retail copy. But I decided to max it out because, you know, I never tried Lion. And I gotta say, I am a fan of Lion. Sure, you may not like it, you may have your own personal preferences, maybe you used it back in the day and it gave you a lot of problems. I don't care. I think it's a fun version of macOS. I can't get enough of the linen background. So this is actually an application. Like a, you know, it's not like a stock iTunes thing, but that background, I can't get enough of this. So here is the specifications of that external drive. 300 gigabytes FireWire. It also does support USB 2, I think, with the USB-B type connector. If I haven't already mentioned, it's a Seagate drive. And the only reason it has 2 partitions, one of them being appropriately called macOS Tiger, that's because that's the Tiger install that I used on the iMac. And I'm sure I can boot up Tiger with another machine, because it is a fully fledged install of Tiger. Untitled 2 is just a second partition because I didn't think I would need all the space for Tiger, but how the turntables. So we do have a built-in 320 gigabyte SATA, you know, normal hard drive in the Mac Mini. It's not the original, I don't think. It did have a larger capacity drive in the past, but I used that for something else, so I put that in here. And yeah, so we do have a super drive. Very awesome, very fun. And for anyone saying that I should put a SSD in this thing, well, here's an SSD. I don't think this SSD works right though, but it might just be a bad experience with one specific computer. It might be an upgrade I'll look into doing in the future, but apart from the SSD in the Mac Mini, I really haven't used any other SSDs. I'm still primarily a hard drive person. I think hard drives are great. Yeah, they're not the greatest for, like, you know, completely modern operating systems, but look at me, I'm using Lion, okay? So I don't care. This thing boots up in like less than 30 seconds, probably less than 20 seconds. It's fast. And not to mention, this is all running without the battery. I do have a battery in this thing, but what sucks about it is that it doesn't work. I'm pretty sure it used to work in the past. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe it sat for too long. I tried a lot of different things to get it back up and running. It doesn't work. But you want to see something that annoys me even more? Conveniently enough, in this drawer here, I have not 1 but 2 PowerBook G4 batteries. And check this out. That one has a charge. See, PowerBook G4 rechargeable battery. And if you look at this one, it also has a charge. I recently charged these up again. They did have a charge before that too, but I charged them up again to make sure they actually continue to work. That's the only thing that really annoys me about the MacBook. But if I get like another one of these MacBooks, maybe off eBay or something, I know they're really cheap, but I still don't want to pay like the 20 or 30 bucks for one and take a risk on potentially another bad battery. Yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. It just works for the meantime. I don't have any complaints. And there's the RAM. 2 1 gigabyte modules, and that's about it for the Mac. So, do I have any complaints with this setup? Honestly, no. It's not like the desk is completely one material throughout, but it works. And 95% of the time, I'm just looking for it to work. Sure, I'll focus on how it looks too, but considering with what I have on hand and, you know, not investing as much time as possible into making it the ultimate cable-free, Wi-Fi only, whatever nonsense setup, I like it. It just works. In about a minute, I can get everything booted up and running and just use my iTunes library. And I also actually made a community post about this recently. I think this version of iTunes is awesome. This is the last version. Why can't I click about iTunes? Yeah, just macOS Lion things, right? So this is the last version of iTunes that supports Lion. I think it's like 12.2.2.2, whatever. Oh, it's probably because of the iPhone 10 that's plugged into this thing. Yeah, so this is iTunes 12.2.2.25. I think that the iOS 8 and 9 theming on this thing is awesome. I know it's not for everybody. I honestly thought it wasn't for me at the beginning, but ever since I started to use it, I think it looks great. I think the album artwork and the way that the text is displayed, I honestly was kind of annoyed at this at first because I was used to iTunes 10 and 11, and before that iTunes 9 and 8 with the iMac, but honestly, I think this is awesome too. It doesn't mean I only want to use this version of iTunes. If I had something like the iMac G3, which was working, still working, I would use iTunes on that too. But compatibility-wise, it's awesome because, like I said, it supports all the way up to iOS 9. I am kind of annoyed that it doesn't work with iOS 10, but at the same time, I've been using iOS 9 and below more. And lately, with the iOS 9 5S, this is a great device to use this on because this is 64 gigabytes, great as, you know, a standalone superior iPod Touch or whatever. Fantastic to use, and it just works great with this version of iTunes. Not to mention, you know, we've got support all the way back to the OG 2G. If I wanted to, I can sync some stuff up to the iPod app there. Or if we want to, we can do some real-time syncing right now with this iPhone 4. This is that jailbroken iPhone that I actually showed off again in just another iPhone 4 video. I honestly never used iOS 7 and above for the music app. iOS 7 is amazing. The fact that it doesn't have the Apple Music integration is also really nice because, you know, I can have this connected to the internet and not worry about that thing. iOS 8 and iOS 9 is a little bit inconvenient because of Apple Music. I really don't care for the streaming services. I'd rather buy more music on CD and more iDevices or more hard drive space in general and just use it like that. Oh no guys, I broke it. I forgot I had this on here. Okay, I don't know why it's not showing up into iTunes here. Let me restart it. But in the meantime, we can also take a look at some of the applications I put on this thing. So obviously we have Finder, we have Launchpad, we have the App Store, which I also am not used to seeing on an older version like this. Because like I said, I've used Tiger and Lion more because of the PowerBook. Airport utility, which is great. You know, airport. And I have a whole bunch of other airports everywhere, so I can check up on those. Interweb for Intel. It works great. I have no complaints with it. It's just a solid version of Interweb. And I'm gonna have to force quit iTunes. Ironically, this has not happened before, but because it's on camera, of course it had to happen, so whatever. Diskaid, that is something that I installed today, and I figured out I actually want to get a newer version of it, so I'm not completely done with that. I haven't used it at all yet. It's the version, it's basically iMazing. That's what iMazing turned into. But I want to use Diskaid because, you know, like I said, we're using older devices here anyway, so I don't want iMazing, and that icon looks pretty cool. Calendar, or no, sorry. I actually made a mistake there. iCal, Preview, Time Machine, which I don't have set up because everything's on the external hard drive. System Preferences, Coconut battery, also great to have for the devices, check the charge level. I also tried to use this to troubleshoot the battery on the MacBook. It says it only has like a couple of charge cycles, but unfortunately it doesn't work. iFun box, which I had before, also to save apps or whatever. System information is this is just a default Mac thing, but I put it on here because I was also checking the battery information pretty regularly. Okay, I am gonna shut down the drive. I think it was also because of the iPhone 10 being plugged in, because it doesn't know what to do. And it's 98 degrees, is still on my desktop. This should have gone away already. Activity monitor, I have this set up to open on startup, because I like looking at the bars here. This is for the CPU activity. Both of them, because it's a Core 2 Duo. Disk utility, nice to have just to check it once in a while. And then I decided to go a little wild here and install the Microsoft Suite from 2008. Have I used these once? No. But I like the icons, so it was worth it. Most of the software here I got either from the official website, going into the archived versions, or I went into Macintosh Garden, which is a excellent website. Torque, which is like a DJ type thing. I kind of don't understand it, but apparently it's like a pro grade piece of software. I only found it by just browsing through the different years of macOS. Why is iTunes still open? Like I said, I have not had these problems before, but because I am filming, it decides to do that. And because the iPhone 10 was not plugged in for long enough, it needs to charge again. I really don't want it to cause any issues. I don't have any other power banks here. And then the next thing that we also have is here, which is like an EQ app. It does make a difference, but at the end of the day, I actually don't really use it because I don't want to mess around with the raw audio if I want to check it. And another thing that I installed just recently is Handbrake, because as I said, this is an iTunes library. It's not primarily just for music. You can also put movies and TV shows. Right over here, I have The Office, the complete series, which I want to import into iTunes, obviously, with that super drive. So I want to import this into iTunes. Probably not what you were expecting, right? This is the BBC version of The Office. Actually predates the US version. I don't remember where I got this, and I've had this for at least a couple years. I have not watched it at all. I do know the DVDs work, but that's about it. So maybe I'll use this as a way to watch The Office on the iPhone 2G here, because I think this had like a copyright date of 2003 or something. Call it 2004, because that's the newest date on here. Released in 2007, only 3 years apart. It's pretty likely you could have been watching The Office on the iPhone 2G. I think I'll make a dedicated video about importing the DVDs onto here and syncing them over the classic iTunes way with Handbrake. If you're interested in checking that out, then stay tuned to the channel. I don't know when it's coming soon, but you'll get to see more of this glorious setup here. So if we take a look at Mr. Bolton here, I'm gonna have to take a pause here and see why my iPhone is not syncing. So it finally works. I don't know what went wrong, why anything went wrong in the first place. This is literally the first time anything like this has happened, but whatever, let's move on. I removed the music on this on purpose. Here is the iPhone in iTunes, and we can have a syncing party. Put some music onto here. Of course, I can't put anything other than music on here because I still gotta import The Office and my other DVDs into iTunes. Oh, by the way, what I did to fix it is I just rebooted this. I rebooted the entire Mac. I guess it works now. I also removed Disk Aid because it was not the version I wanted. With that, we have the iPhone 4 here. Obviously, we got our capacity, a whole 8 gigabytes. Honestly, it really doesn't matter how much storage these things have because you can have just one type of music on. Let's say you can have podcasts or audiobooks on one thing. You can have a dedicated Michael Bolton iPhone, a dedicated iPod just for that type of music if you really wanted to. You get the point, right? You shouldn't be limited by the storage because, well, if you have, you know, more than one, then there is no limit. Technically with this one, with it being 64 gigabytes, that's a lot of storage, but you get the point. This will always say it's up to date because it's obviously an iPhone 4. I don't really have any backups on this thing. It says it has a backup, but you know, it's just the usual syncing nonsense. But what we can do is we can go into music and we can select Michael Bolton. This is gonna take only half a gigabyte. That's not bad. So we can click apply, waiting for it to sync, and momentarily we should see these things pop up. So right now it says no content. By the way, the rounded offness here is because of the custom themes I have on this thing. Obviously the music app would be a white background, but you know, this is very clearly a jailbroken iPhone 4. So if we go back into music, we can see Michael Bolton is loading here. So it's still a little bit sluggish because it's obviously loading all the apps, but we're doing this in real time. With an Airport Express, I can play music directly from this. I can plug it directly into something like that. I can directly listen to the music on here because don't forget, we actually got a speaker on this thing. And now we got our music on here. Check this out with this widget here. By the way, I don't think I actually mentioned what it is. It's called Bowtie. The official website is still actually up for this. The website is called bowtieapp.com. It's still up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all the additional, like, it has like themes. I don't know if these are still valid. Oh, I guess they are. You've already seen it in the entire video. This is one of the more default themes for Bowtie, but if I go into preferences, we do have, you know, what can we choose it if we want to start it at login. I did hide the dock icon. You know, you can have it down here if you want, but I decided that, you know, up here it's always going to be open anyways. I don't really need it there. And here we can choose the themes. This is the default one. I really do like this one, but you know, there are other themes here. The vinyl one is pretty cool. They're all really cool. I mean, there's a certain like charm of the late 2000s, early 2010s software here, especially with Lion. There's also shortcuts. I don't really use these. The one thing I have noticed though, or a convenient one anyways, if you use the mouse wheel on the widget, you can actually adjust the volume from here. And I believe this actually does still work on newer macOS versions, including the latest and greatest. I haven't tested it out because, well, I'm using it here. It's a great widget to actually use. And here is a quick demonstration of a cool feature on the mini system. So I'll probably trim the audio to whatever works, but you saw the lights, right? That was a pretty cool light show. Honestly, it's just like a mid-2000s feature to put on the box or whatever, but hey, it's cool, right? Definitely adds a little bit of life to the setup here. Why did I use Michael Bolton as a demonstration for today's video? I don't know. I think we've covered pretty much everything. We've had a, you know, middle of the night, early morning party here. I would play more music, obviously, but they're all copyrighted, so there's nothing I can really do from that point. I guess I could play some copyright-free music, but you get the point, right? It's a fun setup. It's never going to be perfect unless I get, you know, unlimited funding to do whatever. But considering what I have on hand, it's been fun so far, and I can't wait to see how this setup evolves. I don't have any plans for the meantime. It's working as it is right now. But if you guys have some suggestions, or if you want to see more stuff like this, then leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this. Again, like I said in the beginning of the video, I wasn't even planning on doing this. And by the way, let's leave this guy in the frame, Ricky Gervais. If you guys like this type of content, I do have more stuff like this to show. Obviously not like full-fledged setups. And this video may be the beginning of a series. Maybe we'll continue to evolve this setup. Maybe I'll take your guys' input on how to make it even better. This was mainly just an idea, and yeah, the cable is moving there. This was mainly just an idea, and it just snowballed from there. When I started with the MacBook, getting that out, combining it with that, started using Lion, got these pieces of like shelving material out, excellent as a surface. Decided to use this airport that was just laying around for internet instead of the built-in Wi-Fi. Getting the mini system out for superior audio, because otherwise I'd have to use headphones or the speakers on the MacBook. Spare monitor that is just sitting, you know, keyboard that I've actually been using for a lot of different things, but this is its new home for now. The MacBook on the side here just because I'm using other computers for other tasks. So yeah, like I said, it's been fun. Can't wait to see how else this evolves. Part of the fun, honestly, has been discovering the old software here, like the Bowtie application. Sure, it's not a necessity, but it's fun, and I don't know where else I would have found it unless I spent some time digging through old archives and saved versions of older versions of new programs, things like that. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd very much appreciate your guys' opinion on everything. Like I said, if you have any suggestions for future stuff like this, if you want to see this setup again, I'm more than willing to show you guys the setup again, this glorious setup. Maybe some ways we can improve it. This is honestly the best I've done so far. I will say the MacBook was actually here before with the power strip. This was the same, but that was also before I got the I've been calling it a mini system, but you get the point, right? It's just a mini stereo component system. It was before I got that out, so it was basically just like this desk. I didn't even have this extra add-on here because it was literally just this part. So like I said, it has grown over time. You know, this is the current evolution. So I guess I will keep making videos of how I'm changing it up in the future. Cable management is something to be desired, but honestly I can't be bothered with that right now. It's just too much work for little payoff. I'm always moving things around anyway, so it doesn't seem like there's any point for it. The only cable managed part thing here is the power supply for the Extreme. And I think that about wraps it up. We had a syncing party with the iPhone 4 here, which gave me too much trouble. I really don't know why it was giving me any problems in the first place, but whatever. Now we got the Michael Bolton iPhone here. And at the same time, when I was trying to figure out why this wasn't working, the iPhone 2G showed up no problem. The iPhone 3GS showed up no problem. The iPhone 5S on iOS 9 showed up without an issue. Like I said, the next video probably going to be an import party into iTunes. I guess that's the best way to call it. There's only like 4 or 5 DVDs actually in this thing. Disc 1, Disc 2. These two are for the first season. Second season is on one DVD, and then we have the special. And this is all actually widescreen too, so that's pretty cool. I don't know how iTunes does video automatically. Like I said, I haven't done anything video related with iTunes ever since I've been using it, which is kind of crazy to think half of what iTunes does. Obviously, primarily for music. Video is a whole other realm. I'm pretty sure it'll probably do like automatic conversions if needed, if I'm syncing over to like an iPod video or something. I would love to try that, but I don't have an iPod video anyways. The closest thing I have in age to an iPod video, like an older one, is probably the iPhone 2G. We're definitely going to try and sync over some video over to this guy. Same with the 3GS, the 5S, just a whole bunch of different devices, maybe the Michael Bolton iPhone as well. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited to see where this leads us. I do have more DVDs. I don't have as big of a DVD collection as you'd probably think. I probably have more VHS tapes, to be honest. Why do I only have The Office as like the complete show? I don't know. You're asking the wrong person here. I don't have an answer to that. I'm glad I have it. I just don't have, you know, a whole bunch of stuff like this. But I guess this will be a good way to test out Handbrake, testing out the Super Drive with its DVD capabilities, that is. I do know of Handbrake. I have used a little in the past. This is like the ultimate setup I'd want to use on a Mac with a dedicated Super Drive, and just using it with iTunes. So I'm really excited for that. If you guys are too, stay tuned. I don't know when it's coming out, but hopefully soon. I'll probably do it around the same time as well, so it's a dedicated, like, we're actually in the club party time. Again, I'd love to hear your guys' comments, suggestions, maybe tips or things in the future video, how you want to see this setup evolve. I do want to get more external hard drives, I will say that. I have been looking around for external hard drives. I don't have any, nor do I want to spend the budget on even the cheapest ones I can find. Ideally, I'd like stuff such as this video to provide funding to further increase the setup, because everything here I've had either prior or I've gotten it just over time. But yeah, I would like to continue with the channel. I would like to continue making cool stuff like this. We've rambled on long enough. Let's wrap up today's video. So if you've enjoyed it, then consider leaving a thumbs up, or if you want to see more stuff like this, then consider subscribing. So let's say goodbye to the wood grain for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.